What's up YouTube? Today we're going to go through the entire menu on the DJI Pocket 2. Now I know this might be considered boring, but we're going to try to do it in an entertaining way and give examples along the way. So let's get started, we've got a lot to get through. So to power up, you just hold that little button on the right hand side and your Pocket 2 will power up. If you swipe from the bottom upwards, you'll see there's a little recenter icon. That just recenters your gimbal to push it straight. You can also use the little mode button and push that twice and it'll recenter your gimbal. On the menu you'll also see a little flip icon. That just flips your gimbal head 180 degrees. You can also hit the mode button 3 times to do exactly the same thing. On that very same menu you'll see a slow and a fast follow, which you can just click to iterate between the two. In slow follow mode, the gimbal follows your hand movements in a much more steady manner. In fast follow you can see it's a little bit more abrupt. Now on that same menu you'll see a very strange icon which basically iterates between FPV, follow mode and tilt locked. You can also iterate these 3 modes by using the joystick mode button on the right hand side by clicking it once. This will only work when you don't have active track on the screen or anything being tracked. Currently I'm in follow mode, which means the actual pan axis and the tilt axis will always work, but the roll axis on the gimbal will stay the same. So what about tilt locked mode? Well, I'm in tilt locked at the moment and you'll see that only panning will work in tilt locked. So tilting and rolling with the actual gimbal are going to be locked when you're in tilt locked mode. So that's all you really need to know. If we change that to double click on the joystick so I can change it up and down, you'll see that whatever orientation you set the joystick at, it should be moving at the moment, will be the axis that it attempts to keep stable. Now probably the one that you would use the least is the FPV mode, although some people use FPV to actually get kind of a cool roller coaster effect, and FPV will just mean that all the axes are unlocked and you can pretty much do some weird effects because everything just goes where your hand movements are. Let's see what else we can find by swiping from the top down. You'll see there's a little settings cog, and if you swipe that towards the right hand side you'll see there's a strange icon, and if you click on it it changes to a plus and a joystick. Now we see that little line at the bottom we can actually just swipe up to close that menu, and now we'll see there's a new icon that looks like a joystick. Now we're in joystick mode, and that allows us to move around the gimbal head in sort of left and right, up, down and sideways position. If we go back to that and we click it again, it takes us into zoom mode. So this joystick actually has 2 different purposes, but you can also click that little mode button twice to change the mode. Now if you push the joystick up, it'll actually zoom in, and pushing the joystick to the down position will zoom out. If we swipe from the top down and click on the settings again, we'll see full screen on or off on the top left. This does not change anything but the real estate shown on the small screen. It won't change any size or aspect ratios of your recording. And this is what you'd see if you actually record. It's a 16:9 ratio and it just has 2 little black bars. Full screen always appears a little bit more zoomed in for some reason. However, as I said, it won't change any difference in recording. On the top right of that screen you'll see there's a storage icon which allows you to format and clear your SD card and see how much space you've got. The bottom left allows you to put face tracking on and off. Let me show you some examples. So this is face track disabled, and if there was someone next to you, you could obviously show them and you can pretty much point this gimbal in any direction. There should be no face tracking whatsoever, which is quite nice, and you could have somebody next to you and you could talk to them. And I am using the stereo microphones on this thing. I'm not using external mic, not for this shot anyway. So face tracking is off, and if you double click the screen, will it enable it? Yes it does. So you can actually re-enable face tracking by just double clicking on the screen. So that's one thing you need to know about the DJI Pocket. You can actually leave face tracking off until you need it and just double click on your face. Now remember, you can just double click any item on the screen with enough contrast and it'll try and active track that item. And to disable this, just click the screen a single time again. But it always works better in the app. As you can see here, I was in the DJI Mimo app and I tracked myself behind that tree, and it actually worked pretty well. The Active Track 3.0 was quite impressive behind all the branches, and just look at the result. Swiping from the top down again gives us the settings menu, and if you click on accessories on the bottom right you have a whole new menu. If your do-it-all handle is plugged on the device, it'll show you the information as well as the Wi-Fi password. I think the Wi-Fi password is just to reconnect the handle to the phone again. You'll also see your joystick calibration control, which you can just click if you want to calibrate it again. In that same menu, if you click accessories, you'll also see your joystick control speed. So this could allow you to change the zoom speed, 10 being really fast, a real fast zoom, and 1 being really slow. This was set to 3, so sort of in between, not too fast and not too slow, and it does give you quite a nice effect when you zoom in and out. On the other side, you'll see your gimbal control settings, 1 being really slow and 10 being really fast. And as an example, let's just show you what the 10 speed would look like, which would give you quite a nice whipping effect if you were doing that in your videos. And when we set it to 1, you'll see it's much slower and steady in movement. I don't know in the waterproof case, but there is actually, you can click there and you can add your waterproof case. I don't even have one, so some people might find the beautify effect quite nice, but I haven't really found that it worked very well, so I just skipped that altogether. The next one allows you to switch between high quality and battery saving mode. High quality will obviously use a higher bitrate and record more data to your card, but I don't really notice much difference between these two images that you might see. Now we're getting to some important stuff. We're going to leave the Pro mode for now, but this is where you switch it on and off. That's a microphone, and when you click it, it'll allow you to pair your external microphone that came in the Creator Combo Kit. So get your external microphone, turn it on using the little switch and hold the pair button until you see the green light flashing quite fast. Then it for some reason always gives me a mic disconnected message before it connects. You can then see your mic power remaining and the estimated time you can record with. Let's move on to the next screen. You can see there's a calibrate option, which is kind of useful if your gimbal head is drifting. Make sure you put it on a flat surface. My little tripod was a little bit skew, so that's why mine looks a little bit off center. Just wait for a couple minutes and your gimbal will be calibrated and ready to go. The anti-flicker can be used to help you adjust for your lighting, and depending on what frame rate you're shooting or even what country you live in, depending on if it's NTSC or PAL, I just leave mine in auto unless I see any issues. On the bottom left, you'll see there's a keytone which allows you to disable any noises the camera makes, which is kind of useful in some scenarios. Clicking more will allow you to change your language, reset your entire setup to its default. The device info cycles through all the firmware versions installed on the Pocket 2, as well as all the accessories and your serial number in case you need it for DJI, and the battery info for troubleshooting. Pretty useful. Let's carry on pushing the icons to the left hand side until we get to Pro mode. If you click Pro mode, it'll be enabled and you'll see a new icon on the top left of your screen. But why would you want to use Pro mode, you ask? Now, enabling Pro mode on the Osmo Pocket 2 helps for a couple reasons, but two of the main reasons are you can control your exposure and you could do things for long exposure photography. So those are the two main things you'd want to do. The other thing that's important about Pro mode is the 180-degree shutter rule. Now, the 180-degree rule basically states that in order to mimic the way the human eye sees sort of image in real life, you want to keep your shutter speed double your frame rate. So if you're shooting 24 frames per second, that would mean that you're going to shoot 1/50 shutter speed. And in order to do that, you'd need ND filters and Pro mode on the Osmo Pocket. So I don't want to get too into that today, but that's basically the premise between Pro mode, exposure, and why you'd want to manually expose for anything. Now, clicking that little yellow icon takes you into the Pro mode menu, I guess you could call it. And on the top left, you can click the auto exposure. You can see the shutter speed is 1/30 at the top left, and the ISO is 1600. You can change your exposure compensation value, and since we're in automatic mode, we can't see or change anything else except the ISO, which depends on how noisy your image is. Click on the little manual button, and now we can actually change our shutter speed manually, which is pretty cool if you want to do long exposure or you want to adjust your shutter to actually match the 180-degree shutter rule. Now let's go from the right to the left and let's change it to photo mode and swipe that back again. Now we're in photo mode, and if we click on the top left in the Pro mode section, we're in manual shooting mode, and we can change our shutter speed over here for long exposure. We can also adjust our ISO, although we'd probably just want to keep our ISO as low as possible for less noise. On the left, that's 5 seconds, and you can just click OK when you're happy with whatever setting you've chosen. To go back into Pro mode, always just click the top left, and let's carry on. You can go into white balance, which basically allows you to neutralize the color that reaches the sensor. Remember, all color has a temperature, and different colors of light create different temperatures on your images. And the scale we measure this in is the Kelvin scale, and this allows you to automatically change your shooting conditions from perhaps like a sunny day to a cloudy day. JPEG will be a much more compressed and smaller image size, and RAW will retain more information in your highlights and shadows, meaning you can process a little bit easier. Let's go back into video mode so I can show you a few more things. When you click on the Pro mode on the top left, you'll see there's a normal or D-Cine-like. D-Cine-like is a much more flat profile, which allows you to do a little bit more color grading in post. Let me show you what D-Cine-like looks like. You can see there's much less contrast than the normal one currently on the screen. If we carry on, we see continuous or single point autofocus. In video, Continuous autofocus will continuously try to focus when you're moving or walking around. Single point autofocus, as you can see, that pillar is in focus, and if I touch my face, I become in focus. This is a long video. Swiping once more to the right hand side gives you stereo or mono. If you click on stereo or mono, you can change between how it records a single channel or a double channel. Have a look at this video. This is mono sound and the sound level set to auto. How does it sound? Mono sound with the sound set to auto. I'm not sure why you'd want to ever record in mono, but here it is, mono. Just leave it in stereo. And this is back to stereo sound again. How is the sound? Is it good or bad? What do you think? When you don't attach an external microphone, you can adjust the internal speaker recording volume to low, middle, high, or auto. Let's hear the difference. So this is the internal sound on the speaker if you'd set it to low. This is the sound you get if you set it to medium or notch number 2 on the list. And this is sound set to high internally, and this is auto, so auto is set on at the moment, and this is probably what you'd want to leave it in by default, or at least sound number 2. If you are in a really windy environment, you can put wind noise reduction on or off, and it should reduce some of that background wind noise. Since the Pocket 2 has 4 microphones, we can change the direction that the recording actually takes place by cycling through those options. Let's hear the difference right now. Okay, we're going to try and make this test as scientific as possible. I've got 2 tripods right here, so we're going to try test the stereo sound qualities of this actual omnidirectional microphone. Let's see how it goes. So technically the front speaker should be coming out from the front of the screen when your gimbal's pointing this way. So this is front stereo sound. How is the sound? If I go behind it, you shouldn't even hear me. Let's just test this out. Testing 1, 2, 3. You will technically hear me, but you're not going to hear my voice as well behind the Osmo Pocket. And I am talking quite close to it, about a foot away from the device. And this is back to the front sound. Let's test the next one out. You know, my stupid menu doesn't even work that well, and it doesn't respond. Is that normal? I don't think so. Okay, so front and back, you should hear my voice now. Front of the Osmo Pocket, roughly selfie sort of handles. Let's turn that around. This is Osmo Pocket. I'm talking behind the Osmo Pocket. I'm about 30 centimeters or so from the back speaker. Can you hear my voice? It should be pretty clear. From this side of the Osmo Pocket, from this side of the Osmo Pocket, my voice should be a little bit softer now on the side of the Osmo Pocket. And this side of the Osmo Pocket should be roughly the same, not as loud as this omnidirectional front and back. Now we've changed the directional mic to all, so we're going to try walk around the thing and see if we can get a decent result. So this is the front, normal sound, and I'm walking to the right of you, I guess you could say, the right of the Osmo Pocket, walking around the Osmo Pocket roughly, just to check the sound out on this omnidirectional microphone. I'm right behind the DJI Pocket 2 at the moment, and I'm towards the left hand side of your screen at the moment. And as I walk around and come to the front, does the sound improve at all? I think for better sound, it's always good to use the external microphone, and all you need to do is push that little button and the red icon will show, which means it's actually turned on and in recording mode. You'll also see in your Pro mode settings, if you swipe once to the right, there's a volume indicator which allows you to set the dB levels. I always set mine to 11 or 10, which is kind of the default, but you can increase or decrease and test that out to whatever fits your needs. Let's have a test. So this is exactly what you'd get if you used an external microphone, the little microphone that actually comes with the Osmo Pocket that we just discussed, and I've attached it to a little lavalier mic, and the nice thing is you can pretty much put this anywhere, and you can double click on your face, and there you have it. You've got a little bit of a tracking guy there, and your sound should still be pretty good. I've set the volume level to 10 decibels, which I think is quite a nice medium. I don't want it to be too loud, but this seems to work pretty well. And will the face tracking work? No, it picked me up again. Good job, little Osmo Pocket. You've improved ever so slightly. So this is external microphone. One really cool feature about the DJI Pocket 2. Remember to always turn your microphone off so you don't burn the battery, and you should see a mic disconnected message on the screen. If we swipe from the right to the middle, you'll see the DJI Pocket 2 shooting modes. Let's go to the top and start with panorama. Panorama allows you to shoot 3x3 or 180 degree panorama, and you'll also see a countdown. All you need to do is swipe up and actually press the shutter button, that red button on your gimbal, and it'll do its thing and shoot a 3x3 panorama. It pretty much shoots 9 different photos, 3 from the top, 3 from the middle, and 3 from the bottom. And if you just let that finish, it'll complete. You can also shoot a 180 degree panorama, which basically just goes from the left and shoots a very nice panorama, and it does kind of give you a nice effect. I won't say the image quality is that great, but it could be useful for some kind of projects you might be interested in. You can see this is just a panning shot I did with DaVinci Resolve 16. And yes, while this might not be the most high quality photo, it's nice for landscapes and things like that. Now, there's 3 little dots, which mean there's more options for the photo mode. So let's just go into those 3 little dots. The 16:9 is more like a video, and 4:3 gives you more real estate. Countdown just allows you to set a countdown. If you click on the little pro mode and go into manual exposure, you'll be able to change your compensation, your shutter speed, and even your ISO. Once you're happy with your settings, you can actually just push the shutter button and it'll use the countdown from step 1 and combine any shutter speeds and ISO that you actually configured in pro mode. If you swipe from the top down and swipe a couple times to the right, you'll see there's a 16 megapixel. If you click that, it becomes a 64 megapixel ultra high pixel photo. Now personally, I haven't been doing many photos on this, so I can't really comment on the quality of the photos, but it's up to you to go and actually play around with that. Let's carry on and actually move up to the video mode, which is what I'm more familiar with. And if you swipe to the right, you'll see your different resolutions, which is 1080p, 2.7K, and everything is in 16:9. You can also change your frames per second, and everything at the moment goes up to 60 frames per second only. You can also shoot 24 frames per second, which would help you if you wanted to shoot 1/50 shutter speed and maintain the 180-degree shutter rule. You can go all the way up to 60 frames per second. However, note that DJI is not available when you use 60 frames per second and the do-it-all handle is attached. When you're happy with your frame rates, just push it to the right and you'll be in video mode. Let's carry on and go to slow motion. There's 3 little dots. If you drag that, you'll see you can shoot 4 and 8 times slow motion. Poco cantante, poco cantante. Let's carry on to time lapse, and if you notice when you swipe those 3 little dots, there's 3 different modes. The top one is time lapse. This is your regular time lapse, and you can shoot your interval and your duration. The interval is how often it takes a photo, and the duration will be how long the entire time lapse will take. So all you need to do is select your settings and then swipe again and then press that little red shutter button and it'll actually start doing your time lapse, and you'll see it iterates and it'll actually change the seconds at the bottom. Let's carry on to motion lapse. There's a few settings, like you can go left to right, right to left, and you can also use custom modes. Let's go and see what's inside left to right, and it's the same settings, an interval and a duration. You can go all the way down to 0.5 seconds and you can just click OK when you're happy. You can also go to custom mode, which allows you to actually just choose your interval. And at this point we have to use our joystick and we actually have to move the gimbal head around and then click the little plus on the screen, and then we can move the joystick to the other side, and on the screen you can only do 2 time lapse points. However, using the app I think you can do 5. So then you just push the shutter button and it'll automatically shoot your motion lapse. Let's carry on to the next one, which is hyperlapse, which is kind of like a speedy walking movement. And you can actually just choose your speed and your resolution up to 4K and how fast you want to actually go. Just press your shutter button and do your walk. The hyperlapse gives you quite a nice effect. This is 5 times, and I also did a 10 times hyperlapse. And if you use a skateboard, you'll get rid of a lot of that vertical bounce. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Maybe leave a like if you don't mind. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel, I would appreciate that, and see you again next time.